Welcome to Fabulosity For You, and my name is Angie. If this is your first time visiting my channel, please click the subscribe button, then click the notification bell, so when I upload videos, you'll be the first to know. Like this video and make a comment. This channel is about fashion, relationship advice, and lifestyle. And this is not your first time visiting my channel. Well, welcome back, my queens, and welcome to the kings out there. And welcome to all of my new fabulous ones, and welcome back to my fabulous ones that have been with me. Okay, so today I am doing the review. I am finally doing the review of the 90 Day Fiancé season 11, episode 1 through 5. Okay, so I'm gonna get you guys caught all the way up. This season, we have 7 different couples. So we have a lot of couples to go over. I don't want this video to be so long, so I'm going to just go through it as quickly as possible. Okay, so this season so far, it has some interesting couples, okay? And so I think right now, my favorite couple is going to be Mark and Mina. Okay, so I'm gonna save them for later on in this review. So I'm gonna get right into it. Okay, so the first couple we're gonna talk about is Jessica, who is 30 years old, and she is from Torrington, Wyoming, and she has 3 children. She has 3 boys, 7, 9, and 5 months. The 5 months baby is by Juan, okay? Juan is 31 years old. He's from Cali, Colombia. They met on a cruise, and he was the bartender. And then COVID came, and so she had to stay on this cruise ship, and so she really got the chance to get to know Juan. They started spending a lot of time together, and she went back to visit him, and then she ended up pregnant, and so they decided to go for the K-1 visa. Now, I don't think that this couple is a couple that will be together. I don't think Juan will be with her if she didn't get pregnant. Okay, that's just my opinions. This man is very worldly. He's been around the world working as a bartender on a cruise. And he's used to hooking up with women on the cruise. And at the end, see you when I see you. And so I don't think that he's somebody that's really going to be into somebody now with 3 kids. One of them, which is his own. He did say that he wanted to be a good father, and so he does not want his son not to be in his life. And so he goes for the K-1 visa. In the meantime, Jessica, she is doing it. She's a single mother of 3. She's got her own home. And she's stuck in her ways a lot because she's just used to being the all in all, which I do understand. And so she tells her kids about Juan, and they're excited that he's coming to stay with them. She goes with her friends shopping and buys some clothes because it gets cold, and where he lives is not cold, so she bought him winter coats and everything he needed. She had the outside of the house was decorated, and the kids, the typical kids, she lives in a very rural area where there's cows, and it literally smells like manure. It starts off the season where the kids are throwing manure, so they seem like they're a handful. And make a long story short, they go to meet Juan at the airport. She brings all the children, and he's looking very happy to be there. He missed his son, and he haven't seen his son in a while, and the kids are like grabbing on him. They want the attention as well. I don't know where the other two fathers of her children are, but he tries to bond with all of the boys, okay? She's happy, and it's going to be a big change for Juan, because Juan was a single man with no kids, and to get in a situation with 3 children for anybody when you're not used to being with children is a lot. Is a lot. And so he's looking, and he was like, wow, I don't see anything but trees and stuff like that. And she was like, well, yeah, you know, I live in a small town and this and that. Anyway, he gets to the home, and he was disappointed. He sees the decorations out on the garage. It says, welcome home. And he gets inside, and he's like, okay, the couch is nice. This is nice. And then she shows them the bedroom, and he sees that there's no bed on the door. And he's looking kind of disappointed. And she was like, well, you know, with children, you have to be available. So I took the door off, the bedroom door. And so there's no privacy. We don't have privacy when you have young children. Girl, bye. He looking at her like, girl, bye. And so was I. So the way the house is set up, they have to walk through the children's room to get to the bathroom and to get to his clothes. And so I think it just would have been easier to maybe switch out the bedrooms where they are in the room with the bathroom and the closet. And so, you know, so that's uncomfortable. And he was like, wow, this is small. And she was like, well, and no privacy. Well, you didn't have privacy on the cruise boat. Okay, well, that's the cruise boat, his job. But everybody want to come home to a nice home with some privacy. And when you have a man in the house, girl, you have to have privacy. You can get a monitor, okay, for the baby. You could have put the baby's crib in the room and had the monitor for actually children that are 9 and 7. They're not really little babies, okay? And so they could be left alone in the bedroom with their own door closed if they had a door. And so it just didn't make sense to me, and it didn't make sense to him. So they absolutely had no privacy. 2 days later, she makes some breakfast in bed. The kids are gone, and they were able to get some romance in. So she shows them around her little city, and they only had like 6 restaurants where he's used to a whole lot of restaurants. And so it was really nothing for him to look at. And so later they go to meet her friends, and the friend is like, well, let me rewind. Before that, they're all in the car with the boys, and the boys are fighting, and the baby's, and he's looking like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Dealing with a woman with 2 kids is a lot, okay? And now they have a baby, especially when you're not used to that. So it's going to take a lot of getting used to for this man. So they go out to meet the friends at a bar, and right away the friend goes, hey, did you cheat on Jessica? And so he's looking at her like, is this your business? Now I would have said, I don't mean no disrespect, but that's not your business. That's between me and Jessica. And I would have kept it going. And if the friend wanted to keep talking about it, I would have said, listen, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. But he was being nice. And Jessica looking at her friend and them like this, like, yeah, let's get it going. So when your friends get in your business like that, 9 out of 10, the friend, she told her to do that, okay? Put him in the hot seat. But he was like, yeah, I did. And so she said, you did what? He said, yeah, I cheated on her. You didn't tell me that when I asked you that a long time ago. You didn't tell me that. And now you're saying you cheated on my friend. How could you do that? And he was like, I'm human. It was a long distance relationship, and it happened. So is it just going to just happen? He said, why would it when we're here? And he was like, oh my God, she's acting like she's my woman. Does she want to check my phone? And so Jessica's sitting up like she's enjoying the show. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that at all. So she was finally, Jessica steps in and says, well, you know, we resolved it. We resolved it. I'm okay with it. I was vulnerable myself. And so she said, well, yeah, you went out with your ex. That's different. And so he was like, an ex? I didn't know nothing about that. She was like, yes, you did. Yes, you did. And so he was really pissed off. Okay. So so the friend busted Jessica out. So when they got in the car, he brought it back up again. He was like, you lied to me. You didn't say that this was your ex. She said, yes, I did. And we're not going to act like me and you did the same thing because you cheated. You had sex with somebody and I didn't. Now, he said, hold up though. When you go back to the ex, it's emotional. You have feelings for this person. And so she was like, well, the kids was not there, but nothing happened. And he's right. No, I don't think it's the same, but she did go back to her ex and did not tell him that it was an ex. And that was important information because when you go back to an ex, it's for a reason. Is it still feelings? So she shut it down and she was like, I'm not going to do this. You're not going to act like I did the same thing you did because we didn't. But he said, even though he's dropping it, he's feeling a certain way, like he really can't trust her because the last thing he thought in a million years was that she went back to her ex-boyfriend. So we have to wait and see what happens. I think he's a flight risk. I think he is not somebody that may stay there because it's totally out of his comfort zone, being in a small city with 3 kids, even though one of the kids is his. He's trying, but she's going to have to change herself. She's going to have to put a door on the bedroom, and she's going to have to switch the rooms where they have their own, you know, they can get to the bathroom and all of the things, and he have a place to change their clothes. I don't know if that's the only bathroom in the house, but something got to give. The setup is not right when you have a man in your house. You know, you can't get comfortable. You can't take your clothes off. You can't do any of that because there's no privacy and there's no door. So I'm interested in seeing how that's going to turn out. Next, we're going to go with Stevie, that's 37 years old from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and Maddie, who's 26 years old from Jordan, Iran. Now, first of all, let me just say this. Maddie he's hot, okay? He's a good-looking man. They met online. Stevie is a painter by trade, but she wasn't making enough money. She has a mortgage, and she just wasn't making enough money. So she decided to pick up an extra job online teaching English. Maddie was in her class, and what stood out to her was that he had a lot of questions for her, and that stood out to her. So towards the end of the course, he ended up giving her his social media information. She got on there and saw all those sexy poses and his shirt off and his six-pack. And so they started talking, and she ended up going to meet him in Turkey because that's the only place he could go. And so they ended up in 1 week. They had passionate love making and all of that. And in 1 week, he proposed to her, and she said yes. So she let him get his K-1 visa, and he's ready to come over to the United States. A few days before that, she tells her father. She hadn't told her father before because he was very sick, and she was afraid that he would get upset and that might worsen his condition. So she did not tell him. So she goes to tell him she's very nervous, and he wanted them real red, white, and blue men, okay, in Mississippi. And he was like really surprised to hear this, and he was like, from Iran. And she felt like that would be a problem because he was from Iran. But she explained to him that she is really in love with him, and he's somebody that she's probably is going to marry. Of course, with his blessing. And he was like, I do want you happy, but I can't give you a blessing until I meet him and see what he's about. I don't understand all of this. You talking about getting married soon, and you just not telling me about it. But she said she loved him, and, he said, okay, well, I'll be here, and I want to meet him, and all of the things. So Maddie ends up coming to the United States, and when he got there, he was so excited. He was like, wow. Walking down the street, just seeing people walk freely and talking, and men and women hugging was just so brand new to him, because he's like, in Iran, you will be arrested. And so I guess she's showing him around town, and he sees it's like a festival, and everybody's dancing and having a good time, and he said, if I was in Iran, this wouldn't be happening. And then they stopped at the store, and she gave him something sweet to eat, and he loved it. And he was like, oh my God, I've never tasted stuff like this. And they're steady walking, and she said he's like a child in a candy store. His eyes are just getting big and all of the things. So they finally get to her house, and all he saw was all these pictures of women breasts. I mean, to the point where he was uncomfortable. And she's a painter, and she paints nude pictures. And so a lot of women are wanting their breasts painted. And so he said to himself in confessional, I knew she was a nude painter, but all these boobs, it has me concerned as if she's bisexual. And if she's bisexual, I'm going to feel like I got punked. And he said he already kind of thought she could be bisexual. Now, she has not said she was bisexual, but if you had an inkling that this woman could be bisexual, and he did say that when he left Iran, it's a possibility he can't go back. So he just left everything behind. Why would you ask this woman up front, are you bisexual? I don't understand why people meet these people that they feel like they're going to marry and don't have the conversations or ask questions that they need to ask. It's just crazy to me. So they end up that night getting in the bed and getting down with the gets down, okay? So again, she takes him around. And he did mention to her that if he wanted to go back home later and possibly can't come back, would that be a problem? And she's looking at him like, you just got here, why are you asking me that? But she said, I wouldn't stop you from doing what you want, if it's something you want to do. He know he's not going back home, because when I look at them two, I'm sorry, I didn't see no chemistry. I just didn't, they don't look good together. I just think he's here because he wants to be in America. And I know a lot of people get upset when I say stuff like that, but I have not been wrong yet, okay? So I really believe he's not here because he truly loves her. I didn't see a connection they had. What do they have in common? I mean, I just didn't see any of that. And I didn't see sparks. I didn't see it. I could be wrong. I think he's here to just get his, to be in America. So then she takes him to her family's place to meet her father, brother. And I don't know if that was her mother or was it a stepmother. I don't know. So I just say the mother. And they was just sitting outside. They had the red, white, and blue flag. And they was just sitting there. Stevie said nothing. And she's waiting on Maddie to talk. And he's waiting on her to talk. And so the father and brother, they're just having mindless conversations about nothing. And what do he like to eat? How do you like America? Just stuff like that. So finally, they get in the house and he asked him, do you love my daughter? And he was like, I never loved anybody before. I love your daughter. I never told anybody I loved them before. So he said, well, how do I know you're not here just because you want to get into the United States? And he was like, no, I'm not here I left my family behind. I'm not here just to get to the United States. I love your daughter. And so only time will tell for the dad. The dad did say to get married in 90 days that's just too fast. You guys really don't know each other. And, he told him about, she just told me about you. So I'm just not finding out about you. And he was like, yeah, I was kind of disappointed that she just now telling you about me when I can't, I left my family behind to be with her. And so they had this food that they said that was soul food. Well, no, not soul food. Was it soul food? I think so. And he knew what the mac and cheese was. And then they said they had pork. And he said he was raised not to eat pork. So he didn't want any of that. And so later on, they go back and they had roasted marshmallows with chocolate and the graham crackers. And he loved it. And they all was like, you going to get fat here because you love the sweets. And he said, yeah. And so they leave and Stevie said that my dad likes you. Everything went well. She thanked her mother for putting it together. It was nice. They did make him feel welcome. And I think the father thought he was nice. I don't know about marriage. He doesn't really know yet because this was just his first meeting. And Maddie was kind of afraid to meet the father because he didn't know anything about him. And he's wondering, really, why didn't she mention him? So he was kind of distraught about that and disappointed in her about that. And so that's how that ended. So really briefly, I'm going to talk about Shekinah and Cypher real fast. They've been on 90 Day Fiancé before. He's 45 from Turkey. She's 43 from Los Angeles with one daughter. It started off where he went to go get his K-1 visa interview. He ended up getting the K-1 visa. They ended up telling his parents. They were very disappointed and sad. With one of the family members that she asked Shekinah, if you guys fight a lot and you put him out all the time, what you gonna do that same thing where you leave all the time, his house? Would you put him out of your house? And she was like, well, if we get to that, then I'll put him out and my friends will probably let him stay with them. And that was a jacked up answer. And that's a red flag. Because how you putting somebody out in a different country? And he's not going to have a job. He doesn't know anybody. And then she tells him that if my daughter don't like you, then I can't marry you. It was just a lot. But anyway, he really didn't want to go, but he had to go because she has a daughter, so she can't stay in Turkey, nor does she want to stay in Turkey. And so in order for the relationship to work, he had to do what he had to do. So they get there and they go to one of her friend's house that lived in a mansion in Hollywood. And he was very impressed. He was like, wow, Los Angeles is like for movie stars and celebrities. And he felt really good being there. And they go back to his apartment, her apartment, and he's excited to see how she lives. And he was very disappointed, honey. She had a very small place, and that place is also her place of business. And so she had these little rules. Everything was filled with her job's furniture and everything for the job. So she was like, we can't sit in the kitchen. You can't cook in here because I don't like the smell. And it was like, well, how are we supposed to live without cooking? We have to get stuff that's already made. Can't do that. You can't be here when my customers are here. You have to leave the house. The house is very tiny. The apartment is very tiny. And he looking like, oh my God, how are we going to live together? It was crazy. She knew he was coming. I don't know. She should have had either rented her a house where there's a basement or something. Or a bigger apartment where she could put a room for her business. But to tell a person you can't cook, you can't be in the house is crazy. So he already don't want to be there. So we'll have to see what happens with them. The next couple we're going to talk about is Greg, 35, and John, who's 26. Greg is from Ilslip Terrace, New York, and John is from Kampala, Uganda. Okay, so with these two, Greg has no job. He does little things, odd end jobs. He fixes things, and he likes to cook. That's what he likes to do. Joan, on the other hand, had degrees up, and she had a good job in Uganda. Greg lives with his mother, and he's lazy. He doesn't do anything. She cooks and she cleans, and he cooks. She washes his clothes. He doesn't give her money. Only thing he does is provide food. So I'm thinking he must have a link card, okay? And his passion is eating. But he has been on a weight loss journey, has lost weight, but he's still real big. So he is kind of up in airs on emotions because he feels like she lives a better life in Uganda. And when she comes here, it's a poor life. She has to live with him and his parent in his mother's home. The mother is a trip. The mother's like, well, I want you guys to share her to sleep in separate rooms. I don't want to hear you guys do anything. This is my house, and da 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 da. And he tries to respect what his mother says, but he feels bad that he has nothing to offer her, but he does nothing to help himself. So he goes and gets her at the airport, and he made her some cookies and this, that, and the other. And he takes her to the car and explains that his mother really wants them to live in separate rooms. She, on the other hand, started crying because at the end of the day, she gave up everything to be here. And for her to have to sleep in a separate room, the mother could have gave him a break, okay? And so he said, I don't want you crying. We'll figure it out. So they get to the house, and she already has this attitude, doesn't feel comfortable with the mother for suggesting that. Right away, she feels tired. She's been on this long flight. She feels dirty, so she's asking to take a shower. He shows her where they'll be sleeping, and it was not clean. The closet was not clean, and he knew she was coming, okay? The house was just, I don't know. I would have turned around and went back to Uganda, okay? So he goes down and talks with his mother, and his mother's like, where is she? She's a little bitty thing. And he said, she's taking a shower. A shower? Oh, my God. She's still in the shower? I don't want my bill to be high. I mean, his mother was tripping, okay? The girl just got there. Give her a break. She's been on a long flight. So she ends up staying upstairs and going to sleep. And he comes back down, and he's like, where is she? Well, she's tired, Mom. She took her a shower and she went to bed. About that, I talked to her about us sleeping in separate rooms. She was very distraught. She was crying. So how about us just leaving the door open. I promise you, we're not going to do anything to make you feel uncomfortable in your house. So the mother was like, okay, well, okay, all right. So the next day, she wakes up and she takes a shower. Mama is lying on the grass when right by their window. That's how they woke up. So she already being a bitch. She knew they was asleep. And she gets up, she takes a shower, he goes down to cook breakfast, and the mother's like, where's John? Well, she's taking a shower. Another shower? How long does she stay in the shower? I'm not trying to have my bill go up. My bill gonna go up. And I'm like, the girl just got here, your bill is not going up. And so she comes back down to breakfast, and she was like, oh, you look like you're going to work. You all dressed up. And she was like, well, this is what I normally wear. And so she said, well, how many showers do you take a day? And she was like, well, I take 3 showers a day. 3 showers a day? Well, I'm just going to tell you like this. I don't want my bill going up. And I'm worried about my bill because he doesn't give me any money to pay the bills. And she's looking uncomfortable. It is normal for people to take 2 showers. Now, she lives in Uganda, so it's hot, and she explained it's hot in Uganda, so she takes a lot of showers, and she's going to continue taking her 3 showers. But she just felt uncomfortable with the mother. The mother is being very unreasonable. So after that, they go to the store, and they go buy some food, and she knows he's not really working. She finds that out, and she sees that food is high. She asked him about a job, and he said, well, I did get that state job, but I turned it down. And she just started crying. And she's like, why would you turn it down when we need money? And he was like, because I just want to able to spend time with you. I have plenty of time to get another job. And I'm looking at him like she looking at him like, you are just a lazy ass. And so they get home, and he tells his mom the story about he got the job and he turned it down. Who turns down a good state job with benefits and you knew this girl was coming? I'm sorry. He not good enough for her. He a lazy thing, and he needs to be right where he is with his mama. I will be going back to Uganda. Okay, so that's how that ended. So we're going to go to the next couple, which is Sean, 62, from Los Angeles, California. He lives in West Hollywood. And Aaliyah, who's from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and that's 25 years old. Okay, so the way they met, they was on Paradise Island, which I didn't see, but he ends up meeting her there, and he encouraged her to wear a wig and dress up like a woman. It was a festival going, and when he met Aaliyah, she was Doug. Okay, she was Doug, and he got on the float, and everybody was waving, and he was waving, and decided he felt comfortable being a man, okay, being a woman in women's clothing. And from there, he decided he wanted to be a transgender woman, and he changed his name to Aaliyah. Now, when he first met him, he was Doug, and what he loved about Doug was his bubble booty, bubble butt, those are his exact words, and his curly hair. He was very quiet, very shy. He was not outspoken. And when Doug decided, hey, this is who I want to be, Aaliyah, his whole persona changed. He's very outgoing. He doesn't take no garbage. And he has a mouth on her. She has a mouth on her. And just totally opposite of Doug. And she continues to evolve into this transgender woman. And it scares him because I feel like if he was going to want to be with a woman, he would have been with a woman. And he likes the look of a man. So he's afraid because it doesn't seem like she's the same person is Doug. And she's not. She's involved into a transgender woman. She's involved into her own. She's constantly changing. And she's getting to know herself. And she's only 25 years old. So it starts off with Aaliyah getting her K-1 visa and in the United States and leaving Doug. It looks like she left Sean at the altar, okay? And she says, hey, I know I'm wrong for that. I'm sorry. And then it takes you 3 months in before where she was looking for wedding dresses, excited about it all, and to leaving him at the altar. Then it goes into today where she's going to go to get her K-1 visa interview. And in the papers, her name is Doug. But at the end of the day, she's now involved into Aaliyah. She does not want to go back to Doug, not even for one day. She's afraid that if she goes as Aaliyah, somebody there might not like transgenders or respect her as a transgender woman. And so she's afraid she could possibly not get her visa, K-1 visa. But she went, and in the end, she got it. She talked to her mother about the concern that Sean has not told his family and children and friends about her. And then when she gets there, that he's not going to marry her. And he's concerned, Sean is concerned. He told his mother about her. He's concerned because she doesn't feel like Doug. That's not what he really wanted. And so he's trying to love her as Aaliyah, but deep down, I think he has some reservations. So he really don't know if he really want to marry Aaliyah because Aaliyah is not who Doug was. And so with that being said, I wouldn't marry nobody I'm not sure of. And I honestly understand how he feels. Now, he was previously married to a woman. And he was married for 10 years. And he has 3 children. So he's been married. He is rich. He used to be a hairstylist to the rich. And he also were in the movie. So his house is filled with clothes from actors that could perhaps be were very expensive, okay? And so he is a worldly man. He's been around the block. He's got this 25-year-old, and she's just becoming into her own. And so I think that's going to be a problem. So we have to wait and see what happens with that. So the next couple we're going to talk about is the throuple. The throuple. We have Amani and Matt. They're a married couple. Amani is 30 years old and she's in the tech industry. She said that when she was in her country, that she was born, the country she was born in, men were allowed to have big jobs and women could only be a teacher. And so she wanted to move from her country, and now she calls herself a bad bitch tech, and she's in the tech industry. Matt is 36 years old, her husband, and he's a stay-at-home dad. They have 2 daughters, and they live in San Diego. Now, when you look at the couple, they look like a regular couple, but they're not a regular couple after dark, okay? They like to get freaky, honey. She dress up and play doctor. They do role changes. And it was her idea to be a throuple and to add a third person in their marriage. She admits that she's bisexual, but when she married him, he did not know that she was bisexual. She's the one that introduced him to the idea of them being a throuple. He was against it, But then he decided, hey, if this is going to make her happy, he'll try it. And so they went to Mexico, and at a club, they met Annie. Annie has 3 children, and she is a stripper. She's really struggling hard in Mexico to take care of her 3 children and to put food on the table. She is a stripper. Now, Amina and Matt want to bring Annie to the United States. They feel like it's more than just sex. They have a real connection, which I think is just about sex. And so in order to bring her over, they will have to get a divorce, and one of them will have to bring her back. Now, we all know that it would be Matt to bring her back, but my thing is this. Ain't no way in the world I'm going to divorce my husband and I have 2 kids to be the other woman so he can marry somebody else. That's just, it's crazy to me. I don't understand why they couldn't find a 3rd person in the United States. Their friends think they're crazy, but I think that she loves the idea of being a throuple. But only time will tell. So they end up going to Mexico, and she tells them before they got there that it's some type of dawn or death festival that's going on, and it's similar to our Halloween, is what Amina thought. And so they all wore these masks, and they all feel all sexy with the mask on. And they go and they talk about Annie. And Annie is very attracted to Matt. And Matt is a nice looking man. And she really was talking about how attracted she was with Matt, but she really didn't say too much about Amina. So to me, that was a red flag. I felt like she want that man husband, honey. She want a husband. And so she is thinking about going over to the United States with them, but then she has reservations because she has her children, and she feels like, would they get tired of her? How really would that work? And she just kind of have a lot of questions about it. But I think she's going to go because I believe she'll have a better lifestyle with her children, a better opportunity. She probably feels that the children can have a better opportunity. And so, and then she wouldn't have to work right away because she doesn't have her green card to work. So I think she's going to do it because at this point, she don't have nothing to lose, okay? So they meet up, and she's dressed sexy, and they have these masks, and they're making out in front of everybody. And I believe they asked somebody to take a picture, and Amini was like, we're a throuple. You know, she just kept saying, we're a throuple. Like, who really cares, okay? So even though they act like they have an emotional attachment to Amina, to Annie, the first thing they want to do is go back to the hotel. So they go back to the hotel, and they get in the bed, and of course they had sex and all of the things. And then the next morning, they're kissing each other. And so they tell her that they want her to come to the United States. They want to meet her family and all of that. And she's like, okay, you know. And so she gets in the jacuzzi, and they're all in the jacuzzi. And out of nowhere, Annie says, hey, Amina, Matt and I had sex last night. Now, she was like, oh, really? And she was like, well, I appreciate you saying that, but I really would appreciate it even more if my husband would have told me that. And you could have told me that before you even had sex with him. Now, he said, well, you know, you were sick and you wasn't feeling good and couldn't have sex, and we felt like having sex. And so he was like, it's going to be hard doing the throuple, being a throuple, and somebody's feeling going to get hurt. Now, I wasn't confused because I know how this is going to end. But if you are condoning to have a throuple and you're going to bring her back to the United States and you're going to divorce your husband to do that, what difference does it make if they had sex without you? Every time you guys have sex, it's got to be the three of you guys. That's not being realistic. I look at that as a red flag. I really think she said she was bisexual. She might be more towards a woman than she is a man. And I think that she wanted Annie for herself. And so she was jealous. But I think Annie not thinking about her like that. Annie want her man. So then they start talking again about, you know, we want to meet the family and have you told your family about us. And she was like, but before we get into that, Matt couldn't understand why Amani was mad. And I can't either, except for the fact that she's not going to be able to take this. She's not going to be able to take this because you're not going to it's not going to all the time just be the three of you guys. Okay? And I'm quite sure she's going to sneak in some turns with her by herself too. And so this is a dangerous game this woman is playing. And I'm not mad at, I am not feeling sorry for her because they had sex without her, because she the one that brought this to the marriage. So then they started talking about, asking Annie, have you told your family about us? And she was like, well, I told them about Matt, and I said that you was a friend. I did not tell them that we were a throuple. Now, first of all, Annie is from Mexico, and they are very Catholic. Most of the Mexican families are Catholic. And I wouldn't have told my family all of that either, because first of all, it's not going to work out. Let's just understand that. I don't think it's going to work out. That's my opinion. And so why would you put your family involved if you didn't think it was going to work out? If it might not work out. And turn the family against her, and this might not work out. So I agree. I wouldn't have told my family either. Oh, but Amina took it so hard. She was like, I can't believe that this is what she didn't tell her family. I'm a secret. I've been a secret all my life. I'm not going to do this. I've been in a closet. I have had to be silent in my country. I was silent. She didn't tell her husband right away. And so she said, it's making me feel a certain way. And you saying you are with my husband. Now, I don't know why they feeling all tripped out about it, because I don't blame them. What difference does it make if she didn't tell her family? If she did not tell her family what was going on? What difference does it make? And so they was like, she had a private conversation with her husband later, because she didn't want to mess it up. They was all in the jacuzzi, and you know they was going to get down again. And so she left that behind, but later on she told her husband it really making her feel a certain way, and she was really surprised about what she said. And so her husband was like, well, then we should talk about it. And so Annie basically was having she was like, listen, I'm not going to tell my family, and it is what it is, and I don't blame her. So what's going to happen next? I don't know. But I just think they all some fools. That's my opinion. So the last couple we're going to discuss is Mark, who's 58. He's from West ICP, New Hampshire. I don't know if I said it right. And Mina, 35, and she's from Paris. Now, the way they met, he was in Paris. He is an airplane pilot. He has his own private plane, and he has driven around. He's an air pilot for the rich and famous. He says he's driven his plane. He's rode on his plane many celebrities that he cannot talk about. And he was at a restaurant with some friends, and he looked across the room, and this young, beautiful woman, Mina, was staring right back at him, and he felt real good about it, and was like, wow, I can't believe this beautiful woman is looking at me. So she comes over, introduced herself, and the rest is history. They went out to dinner, and they've been together ever since. They've been together for 2 years, and then she ended up having a baby, and so they have a little girl. Now, she has a son from a previous relationship. So they end up, I believe that they end up, she gets her K-1 visa, and so he's waiting for her to come to the United States. So he's all excited that his family is finally coming, but this man has not child-proof his house. He did not buy any Pampers for the baby. He did not even buy a high chair for the baby. He's done nothing to really prepare for the baby. He didn't even buy food in his house, but he had plenty of champagne. So he's excited, and at the last minute, he tried to put a gate up for the baby, but he meets his daughter out. I believe she's 26 years old, and they play some golf, and he says that she's coming, and she'll be here in the next day. And she was like, oh, wow. She felt like it's one thing that I am knowing that he has this woman, but it's another thing that they are actually here in America, United States. So it makes it real for her. And she's not accepting of it. So she was like, well, I don't like how she made us wait 4 hours when we came to see you guys in Paris and all of the things. I didn't like that. And she treated us like she didn't care that we was waiting. We came all this way. I don't like her. I just feel like, she wants you for your money and all of the things. And she just was like really bad mouthing this woman. And I know he wants everybody to get along and them to be a happy family, extended family. And I just feel like, it's just not going to go that way. Kids are tripped out when the parent meets somebody and starts a new family, especially a parent that's rich. So is she mad that this man might give her all his inheritance? Or she got to split the inheritance? Now, Mark has 2 children, and he's divorced. And so he kind of felt bad that his daughter was talking like that, because he wants the daughter and Mina to get along. So it's time to go pick up Mina and his baby. And so he picks them up, and then he takes them home in his private jet. He wanted it to be a really grand thing that he did. She's very excited. And then they get to his house, and she's like, wow, this is like in the middle of nowhere. And then she said, this is a big house. But when she goes in, it's an old house, old furniture, nowhere that a young woman would want to be. And Mina is that girl, okay? And she's had a life in Paris and all of the things. And she just didn't seem like that'd be the type of home decorated, how the house was decorated. It's an old house. It's in the middle of nowhere. She's 35 years old. So she's looking at the house like, ugh. And then he still had pictures of his ex-wife and his children all around the house. I would have been mad about that. He really didn't prepare for Mina because he should have took the pictures down. And then she's hungry. He has nothing to eat, but he has champagne. And so he's like, we'll go to the store. And it's just like, she's like, do they have fresh vegetables and fresh? And he was like, no, it's a convenience store. And she's like, wow, you know, this is not what I'm used to. And she's doing a lot of complaining. And he's like, she's like, I don't want to live here. He was like, listen, you just got here and we're going to make this work, okay? We're going to try to make it work. If you want me to redecorate the home the way you like it, we can. But I love being in New Hampshire. This is where I want to live. And so the next day, he takes her around town because the baby didn't have a high chair and she needed to eat. And so when that happened, she's like, it's no stores that have high chairs. And the store they went to, the furniture store, all they had was bare furniture. It was called the Bare Store. And she's like, this is not going to work. And he said, well, we'll drive into the city and get the high chair. But for right now, we got to just make it do. And so she's not happy where she is. So he said, let's get in the hot tub. And he's giving her champagne. And in the hot tub, you know, he's saying about, I want you to really be friends with my daughter and be nice to her. And she was like, so we're not friends? She's my enemy? And so he was like, no, but I'm just saying, I just want everybody to get along. And she was like, I'm going to do it for you because that's your daughter. And so he ends up having a barbecue so she can meet some people. And they were all old as well. Nobody had kids. So she started talking to the women and she was telling them about the daughter and how she's acting. And they said, well, you know what? That's his daughter and he's a people pleaser. He wants to please his daughter. He wants to please you. And she was looking like, you know, like, hey, I'm the queen in this house. I'm the queen. And what I say, go. And so Mark, I was liking Mark. Mark seemed like he really loved Mina. And Mina loves him as well. And they have a beautiful baby. And I was excited for Mina to come to the United States. But it's always the kids. It's always the kids. He tells Amina that his daughter was upset about having another baby. Us having another baby. And she didn't like that idea. Now, was that something he should have told his wife or should he have even told his daughter? Especially when you know the daughter is jealous. And so Amina was like, oh my gosh, she's a snake. And he's like, no, that's my daughter. Don't say that. You're going to have to get along with my daughter. So she got mad and got out and said, well, you know what? You sleep in another room. So the next day, they end up making up. And she said, I'm going to really try to be friends with your daughter. And so they end up going to meet the daughter and the boyfriend. Now, where his son at, I don't know. They have not shown his son. But at the end of the day, they meet the daughter. She did not say hello to the baby. The baby was trying to play with her, which is her sister. And she was ignoring the child. She basically was telling her father and Mina that she don't like the fact that they have thinking about having a baby. My father don't need no more kids. My father's 58 years old. He shouldn't be taking care of small children. And for all I know, you married my father for money. And she was just going in on Mina. And at the end of the day, I don't understand what she's mad at Mina about. Your father chose her. Had a baby with her. And even said at one point he wanted another child. So who are you to feel this way and act this way? I don't know. So Mina was like, let me talk to your daughter alone. And she said, what's the problem? I mean, what is wrong? She said, well, when we came down, I guess the baby was getting Christian, to the party, you took 4 hours and da-da-da-da-da. And I do think, it might have been her engagement party, but it was a party for her. And she said, and she said, well, I was getting dressed. I was getting my hair done. I was getting dressed, and it took that long. That's something normal. And she said, if that's a problem, we could have been talked to resolve this. And she said, but I'm mad at you because you're married to my father, and if he hadn't chosen a young woman, he wouldn't be trying to have babies at his age. And she said, this is my body, and I can have babies if I want to have babies. And she said, well, I was just saying, are you marrying him for his money? I think you're marrying him for his money. So she said, hold up, stop. You know what? You're a snake, and you cannot come to my wedding. You are not invited to our wedding. And she said, oh, you mean my father's wedding I'm not invited? And she said, absolutely. You're a snake. And you know what? That's his daughter. And to talk about people's kids, you walking on fire line. But at the end of the day, this is a grown woman. She's 26 years old. And whatever problem you have, you need to keep that in private with your father and let your father get her straight. But to sit up and she was so disrespectful, saying you marrying my father for money and this and that. Of course, she's 35 years old. Your father's 58. So money, it will be involved. You have to pay the cost to be the boss if you want a young woman like that. So he don't have no problems with it. I haven't once heard him ask her when you gonna get a job when you get to America. So he want a kept woman. And so that's none of his daughter's business. Now, if you mad because your daddy, if you think gonna spend the money or leave the money to the babies, girl, bye. You need to, God bless the child that has this on. One thing I cannot stand is grown kids getting into their parents' business. It's okay to say some things, but she was disrespectful. And at the end of the day, even though that's his daughter, honey, that's his woman. And everybody needs to stay in their place. So I don't know how this is going to end. Mark was very upset about how things went down. But he going to have to put his daughter in her place. So that's all I have. That's all I got. I'm sorry for the long video, but we have 5 episodes to go through. And I'll see you in the next video. And make a comment and let me know what you think of the couples.